I've been thinking about our church, particularly with Bishop Mary's visit. Brian and I were here just, I think yesterday or the day before, kind of trying to scrub the place up to make it look well. But it got me thinking about our church, the lovely building that we're in. And it struck me that one of the smallest and most practical changes that we've made to this church in a long time may also be one of the most theologically significant. What am I talking about? Well, it's not the stained glass windows. I'm not talking about new pew cushions. I'm not even talking about our relatively new sound system and AV, as nice as they are. The changes I'm talking about are two sets of metal rails bolted into the front steps. Did anybody see them? I think we have a picture on the screen. Two pieces of steel, painted and anchored. Now, they don't look very exciting. They don't preach sermons. They don't sing hymns. They don't lead prayers. But they help people get closer to Jesus. They help people get closer to Jesus. And that is why I think that they represent the work of the gospel. Because here's the truth. The gospel, just think about it, the gospel isn't just a set of abstract ideas floating above our heads. The gospel is always stubbornly, awkwardly, tangibly incarnated. It's incarnated. It happens in the stuff of life. Later on, it'll be happening through the stuff of the bread and the wine, through splinters and nails, fishing boats, look at the stories, muddy roads, tear-stained cheeks, calloused hands. And today, it's incarnated through black powder-coated handrails. So let's look at these handrails a bit. I would say that the handrail is the opposite of a barrier. Okay? A barrier would say to you, stop, you can't come through here. But a handrail says, come on, I'll steady you. I'll walk with you. A barrier keeps out the wrong people, but a handrail makes sure that it keeps in the people who might otherwise slip away. And in the Gospels, Jesus is constantly knocking down barriers and putting up handrails. We've seen this over the last number of weeks as we've worked through Luke. When the crowd tried to shoo the children away, he called them over. When the Pharisees put up religious fences to protect their holiness, Jesus opened the gates, didn't he? And he ate with the tax collectors. And he didn't just tell the paralyzed man, remember we looked at blind Bartimaeus, get up or you're forgiven. He told him, get up, take your mat and walk. And I think that beautiful healing is a picture of a spiritual handrail. An act that helps somebody take their first shaky step into a new life. And so here's my first point. If we think the Christian life is just about removing obstacles, then we've only got half the picture. Jesus doesn't just clear a path. No, he doesn't. But he offers a hand. He offers a handrail to walk it with you. And I think our gospel reading, which Michael so beautifully read, gives us a perfect picture of why this matters. You see, just to recap, Jesus was teaching in the synagogue and he sees a woman who's been bent over for 18 years. 18 years of looking at the ground. 18 years of navigating the world from the edges of her vision. 18 years of being passed by, literally, because people would just look over her, not look at her. And we're told this, it's on the screen. She was bent over and was unable to stand up straight. Those words are really important because it means that she wasn't just physically bowed down, but socially. She was socially doubled over and spiritually. She was the type of person who may have been in the room, but always on the edges of it. But what happens? This is what I love. And this is when people know I'm halfway through a sermon, because here comes Jesus. Before a single word is spoken, it says, when Jesus saw her. Look at that. He sees her. And I want to challenge us today. Who do we see? Do we notice the people who are bent low in life? The ones who slip into a room quietly? Accessibility begins with seeing. I am so pleased that we have some friends from the Rotary Society here. I got to spend a Christmas lunch with them last December, and I got to hear how they see what's happening in our local community, and then they're moved in compassion to respond. What are we seeing? Who are we seeing? What happens next? Well, Jesus then speaks, and he says, in fact, it says he calls her over. I love these words because, again, they remind me of our new handrails, because handrails don't kind of chase you down the street. They don't drag you up the steps or hit you over the head with the Bible or tell you where you've messed up or anything like that. Handrails simply stand there, visible. They're visible from the road. They're steady. They're open. And like Jesus, they call. They say, you are welcome here. This is for you. Come if you wish. Rest if you need. Lean if you must. You know, sometimes I see people sitting and resting in our porch or resting on the benches. I think the benches say the same thing. They say, come, sit, rest. They call. And so here's the second challenge for us today. Who is God asking us to call? And I would say make space for. Who do you invite in a way that signals this space, this love is for you? Because invitations are not just words. They're about rearranging our lives. I want to push this point home. About rearranging our churches, our tables, so that others can fit. I think we've got some wonderful examples here at St. John's. Remember we had our 8 a.m. BCP service up until recently? We moved it to 9 a.m. And there was a big cheer when I mentioned that a few weeks ago. Because it made it easier for people to come when it gets dark, when it's icy, an hour later. Invites people in. Bubble Church, which we now run over here twice a month. We have literally, a team of us, rearranged the furniture. But it's wonderful to see families who are looking for rest and Sabbath on a Sunday coming into our church. We have the flight deck, the room we cleared, so the youth have a place to call home. Like the handrail, they are calling out to people. But let's move on. Jesus sees, Jesus speaks, and here comes the touch. It says Jesus, I love this, he lays his hand on her, and she stands again. Beautiful picture. And this picture reminds me of the Old Testament, where Moses, during a battle with some people called the Amalekites, grows tired. And he's really tired. His arms, he's beginning to bend over. But what happens? Aaron and a friend, Hur, stand beside him, and they lift up his hands so God could prevail. They didn't take over his role. They simply steadied him. And so here's our third question. Who are you holding up? Who are you steadying? I know a number of us actually, through the week, hold people up and steady people. And I just want to affirm that and recognize that. It's wonderful. It reminds me of a sermon 2 weeks ago. It was called We the Little Flock. And we looked at the imagery of a sheep, and we said part of being human is being vulnerable and needing the support of others. And we looked at the fact that there's a dignity in that, and there's a joy in providing it. And I think at St. John's, I see it happening all around me, with the lifts we give, with lunch munch on a Friday, And not just physically, but even on a Wednesday communion. What I see happening here as we share our lives is lifting each other up, holding one another, steadying each other. Who are you supporting, even if just steadying the hands for a while? I was away last week, and for those of you who came on a Wednesday, you would have had a lovely surprise of Brian leading the service. And then you had a double dose of our warden because he led Sunday as well. Brian has been steadying my hands so Kai and I and the kids could go have a rest, have a vacation. Now, how do the church people respond to what Jesus has done? Well, the synagogue leader, as you can see, is not impressed. In fact, it says he's indignant. Why? This is a type of person, and this person can sometimes reside in our hearts too. This is the one who thinks the rules matter before the person. He thinks Sabbath means stopping work, even work that might set somebody free. But Jesus looks at Sabbath different, and we are called to as well. For Jesus, Sabbath means removing every weight that keeps people from connecting or knowing God. Let me say that again. Sabbath, which means peace, means removing every weight that keeps people from glorifying God. And that's what these handrails are for too. Not just to make the journey possible, but to make it steady for people to come to know Jesus. And just in closing, this is where I think our gospel message meets communion a little later on, and Bishop Mary is kindly going to be administering communion for us today. But you see, I know, but not everyone here can actually walk to the front to receive, right? Even with the handrails. For some of us, even the steps can be a bit much. But this is where, and I want us to pay attention when it happens, this is where the gospel shows its true nature. Because communion is not about how far we can travel. It's about how far Christ has already travelled for us. Let me say that again for those of us who receive in our seats. Communion is not about how far you can travel or what you can do. It's about how far Christ has already travelled for you. So if you receive in your pew this morning, you are being met. Just as the woman was met by Jesus where she was, so too the bread and the wine comes to you where you are. And again, we have an open table here. If you ordinarily receive communion wherever you are, please come, please receive, please share. For the same Christ who calls us to his table is the Christ who walks to meet us with a meal in his hand. So when Bishop Mary presides, she won't just be standing at the table, but at the right time, she will come down. And she is part of our church where Jesus moves towards his guests. And just in closing, when we cut the ribbon, and remember, after the service, please go out and stick around the front. When we cut the ribbon for our new handrails, we are making a declaration. Okay, when we cut it, I want you to know this, we are going to make a declaration that in this place, that in St. John's, barriers are dismantled, distances are shortened, and everyone is within reach of the table. So, on the screen, number 1, who do you see? Who in our community that you see is in need, doubled over in pain or shame? Number 2, who is God asking you to call, to invite, to make space for? Number 3, and who, and do pray about it. In this season, perhaps, is God asking you to hold up? Maybe just even today. What a difference a phone call. What a difference a phone call can make. Who are you steadying? Because the kingdom of God is full of people who got there because someone came. Jesus came to find them. Jesus came to steady them. And Jesus came to walk beside them. And that person, as I've said, is always Christ. To him be the glory forever. Amen.